TV.
Welcome everybody, my name is Leon van Rooij and we're here at Playgrounds TV in our studio and we always invite guests. We want to know everything about them. And today we have a very special one. We have Maureen Van Der Hout. Welcome in our studio, Maureen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm really happy, looking forward already to this talk. Because I think 2 years ago I had a tour in the studio in Amsterdam. We're going to talk about it later in this interview, but we did a tour and then I was introduced by, I think it was Vincent.
Yeah.
And then you were like drawing very quickly because you were like in a deadline, but I saw beautiful work and I thought, okay, once I should invite her for Playgrounds. Yes. So finally we have this moment. And this is already a kind of a beautiful piece of work here on the big screen. And it's you being dreamy.
Yeah, this is my dream.
This is your dream.
Yeah, just a cabin in the woods in nature, drawing animals, nature, what is my biggest inspiration. Or having like a little van where you can drive through the world with your illustrations and my cat in the back. And that's, yeah,
cat actually in the back. Yeah, right.
He's chilling with me and yeah, that's my dream.
All right, and exploring the world and designing at the same time.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. Now, well, let's go on a journey through time and all your work. And then it's the first question. Like, okay, this is maybe the end dream. This is the end boss solution of all your hard work. But how did you get started in this field?
Yeah, well, it started when I think I can remember I was drawing already. It was like always drawing wherever I was. When there was a party, I was the one that was in a corner like drawing. It also made me more zen in a way. I don't know, it was just my thing. And I could like suck into this whole world of imagination. And since then I basically knew what I wanted to do. And that's illustration, designing, everything that has to do with visuals and design. Yeah. So I started to go to the Willem de Koning Academy. No, I'm not correctly saying this. That was the second step. I first went to the Grafisch Lyceum in Rotterdam.
All right.
And that was basically because the first time that I went to the Art Academy in Rotterdam, I didn't got, how do you say that?
You didn't got hired by the school.
Exactly. So
no, you weren't allowed in the course.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know. Approved, allowed, whatever.
Yeah, doesn't matter. I wanted to do something in the meantime, so I could the next year again apply. So I went to the Grafisch Lyceum in Rotterdam, and that was basically one of the greatest things that I did, because I started to get to know all these programs like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, even Dreamweaver, which I don't ever use now, but hey, it was nice to know. And basically there I started with all my basics and everything that I wanted to do. And then I was like, hey, there's this world opening up for me where I can do anything that I like. And I can learn and everything. And then I went to the Art Academy in Rotterdam at Blaak. And yeah, from there on, I fell in love with illustration, because I first started a bit more graphic design-ish. And after that, I was like, oh my God, but illustration, there's so much out there. I want to do this and that. And from there, the bomb exploded. And I had 4 years of amazing people that I met, amazing learning experience. And yeah, that's basically the starting of it. And I did so many different things. They also said, like in the beginning of school, like, you have to have one style, and that's really important, because then people recognize you and you get hired by this or that. And I was always like, yeah, but I don't have that. And if I have one style, then I'm bored in one day and I want to do something else. And it was really weird for me, because I really felt like, I'm a bit different here. So I tried to, throughout those years, try to make it my strength instead of my weakness. And I think because I'm now a freelancer, it really works out well to have not only one style, but focus on more things.
Yeah, it's a discussion that I have also, because I work also with a lot of talents. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, you hear a lot that people are looking for a kind of specific style, so that they will be recognized, or they can position themselves in the industry. But like with all great artists, they go through different phases in their life, right? So you have like Picasso going to the blue period, and you have like more the cubic work, so cubism. So in that sense, it's like everybody is exploring how you can improve yourself, etc. So, and if you have one style, you always have to work within that criteria or within that boundaries. And it's good to explore different things, right?
I think so too. And then maybe the end boss is that you know what you want and you have your style, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever get there.
Yeah, and I also think that every story has probably their own language. So sometimes you also have to pick what kind of style, color, designs are needed to tell this story in the best possible way, instead of just like trying to translate that story into your style, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, good decision. But because that you were working in that many styles, you already mentioned, it can give you a lot of job opportunity because you can take a lot on it.
Exactly.
You start working at ambassadors.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit how you got hired?
Throwback to school, to the art academy. I was looking for, what do I want to do after? I really don't know. And I have so many different styles and everything is fun and great. I want to do something that I like, but I like everything. So I was thinking about I met a certain person at advertising. There was more that way of like the advertising world.
Right.
And in illustration at the Art Academy, they did not really talk about that. It was more about like little pieces of illustration in, for example, a newspaper or these kind of things, or children's books, which was great. But I felt like it's not really fitting for me. And I was seeing these friends and everyone, and they said like, hey, maybe you can check this out. And there was this open view for ambassadors. And I was like, well, let's give it a try. And I went and I was like, wow, in this company, they do the music, they do the voiceovers, they do the art, they do the design, they do the animation, visual effects, everything. And I was like, I didn't know this world was existing. I thought it was only in America or something, you know? And then I figured like, okay, I think I'm not going to be it, but I'm just going to try it. Fuck it. And I was just graduated and I tried and I got it. And I was like, what? How is this possible? And I was so happy. And it basically started from there. And I met Vincent, which was like, for me, a great teacher, a great friend, a great person. And I learned so much from him. And his vision in the company was amazing. So, and then started 4 years, or not more even, 5 to 6 years of being in ambassadors, learning from scratch and mostly the new path that I wanted to take in the film industry and the concept art. So. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, because what you already mentioned, it's kind of a gap between Art Academy, which you mentioned, and it's changing, but like sometimes more even traditionally based, which is nothing wrong with it. And then working in a more commercial context in advertising, because like for those who don't know, the ambassadors, they are like a studio in Amsterdam. Are full service. So what you already explained, they do film, animation, sound, the whole package. And they were like developing an animation department, and you got hired by that group.
Exactly.
But what was for you the biggest difference between like what you learned at school and what you learned in ambassadors? What was like really an eye opener for you?
That nothing is too weird, and that that I don't have one style is not particularly a bad thing, and I don't want to, I just learned so much. Like you do internships at your college probably, and it's short. It's short, you don't know what you want, you're
just a few
young.
months.
Exactly, you don't know. You're just grabbing everything that's out there and try to make it work, and like, this is my thing, and you want to have a label on it, this is my thing. And I never had that. And in ambassadors, they gave me the feeling of like, you don't need that. It's great to explore everything you want. So basically for me, the most important thing is the learning experience and getting more secure of your own work. And it's just great to see it all over the television. And I know that not a lot of people watch television anymore, but this was like so cool in the beginning when first my commercial was like, oh, I made those creatures. It's super cool.
Hey, and there's also what I hear a lot, but maybe you have a different experience with it, is that don't make it too personal. So when you draw a character, they will have a lot of critique. You work with an art director, probably you will work with a director, there's a client. So a lot of people are involved in your designs. Was that something difficult for you, or?
No, I never had really problems with that. But that's also, again, because I work fairly fast. And that's why, so I'm like, in my head, there's this huge library and catalog of like different styles, different art, different whatever. And okay, you have this in your mind, send me the image, and I draw it fast, and then they're like, no, not like this. So I could manage that. But of course, to be fairly honest, I'm now a freelancer and I adore it. Like, I can do my thing. Nobody, like, of course you have clients, but ambassadors, I had more people looking at it. And now it's just like one agency, for example.
Yeah. So you have more control about what you like in that sense.
And you can pick your own projects, of course, and the freedom, I really like it.
You mentioned that you're showing sketching. Is that like also how you work? In that sense, like a lot of sketches and then trying to find the right shapes in it, and then people say, yeah, this one?
Yeah.
Or is it like I make one kind of concept art and then I said, all right, this is the one, this is you have to hire? Or do you give some people's choices?
It's, again, in that sense, I'm a bit different again, because everybody normally starts sketching, doing the proportions, then work it out, then work it further out, then make it ready for whatever it goes to, animation or whatever. But I, for example, never sketched. I just did like plop, and I worked it immediately out.
Plop.
Yeah.
That's interesting, but already lined art, already working with colors.
Yeah,
so
sometimes I didn't sketch, and I did right away go in Photoshop or in Illustrator and make it ready.
So where we're looking at, that's exactly like also sometimes how you, well, maybe not with the coloring, but like this is kind of the line art you do
exactly.
Your
Line art is mostly out of my head. The thing is, what I learned at Ambassadors the most is also to sketch, and it worked very well, but I just didn't do it in the beginning for some reason. This is, for example, mostly with Illustrator done, and that was my first love when I started designing. And now I'm totally in love with Photoshop and Procreate. I not often go back to Illustrator. It's like, I cannot do everything I want. But yeah, it's great. I know, I like it.
Hey, and this has a more graphical approach. Yeah. Is that also maybe some of your interest, like combining the more graphical touch that you learned at the Grafisch Lyceum, etc.?
Exactly.
Maybe a little bit your background, and working in a fast pace for advertising, in which things should be really clear and readable, and in a fast pace.
Yeah.
So is this an example about how you combined all those elements?
Exactly. This was also fairly in the end of when I was at Ambassadors, and there I could combine everything, like the weird shapes that I used with ASM Bank, where we go to later, and like the graphic styles, but also like the colors, and everything is a bit in it. And I really like to use this super simplistic forms that you like, what is it? But then you still can recognize like a human or a certain character in it, and that makes a character also way more unique, because if you then make it 3D or you're gonna work it out, then it's really a unique design, instead of like, okay, it's perfect in proportions, it's a perfect human. That's nice, but I find it then boring again. And then I go the weird way, and I really like that.
Yeah, because this is for client Bo Nedam.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, the colors are like already specific, specified. So, but then how are you going to start work? What are we looking at this moment?
It was about like a little lift or a port where you go through if you go to an office, for example. And they wanted to show through ambassadors like, okay, we want to make this port for everyone. So if you're old, if you're disabled, if you're super big, if you're small, whatever comes through, it's possible with this port. And that's Bo Nedam. The thing is that they wanted to create characters, different characters, so they can fit to the ports, and they made a little animation of it. And that's basically what I did here. I made like the different characters, throughout, like the backpacker, the guy that goes to sports every day, the guy that goes to groceries, the old lady, the traveler, you name it. And yeah, that was basically it. And this is just like a sheet of all my outbursts in my brain.
All right, so outbursts, but you try to connect them together so that it's like regarding to world building, that they're all from the same world, they blend in.
Exactly, and that's why I chose, for example, those colors. And these are also not all the same world. Like, for example, the top one, the traveler one, is what we got in the end. But for example, we also have like that cow underneath. That was like a wild idea of like, maybe we can put a mascot in there. Didn't happen. But it's nice to combine it all together to also see your process and progress, and yeah.
All right. Hey, and like mentioned, this was a bit more graphical approach to it, and really clear lines, and then you already start like a little bit more looser lines and kind of a fluffy character design as well. Was that like how do you say? Is that a total different way of working for you?
Yeah,
Because I
that
can
was
imagine
very
that
different.
sketching
Yeah.
is then sketching coming in or
Yeah.
less or more?
Yeah, then the sketching appears, and the thing is, I really learned a lot from. Now, yeah, you have like amazing artists and ambassadors where I learned from, like for example Rachel, who also got here, Rachel
Yeah, Rachel
Lingeland,
Joy Lingeland.
Nick Groeneveld, Vincent Lammers, Jurien, Rink. So much people that I learned from, and they are also like all have this different kind of powers that they have, like the superpowers. Like one can do amazingly environmental design, but also 3D. So he knows how to shape that into a character. The other one is very good in animation. Rachel, for example, is very good in concept art. And for me, it was like I came there as a graphic girl that wanted to illustrate and wanted to learn more about this world. And so they give me all the years like help to do this, and that's how I created my own little style in it. And I could combine those crazy forms and shapes and graphic style into characters for various commercials. And yeah, that's basically where I learned it from.
Hey, and regarding criteria, like if you're talking about character design, what is like for you a criteria for appealing character design? What is like Maureen? If that's not in it, it's not like passing the your quality test.
Yeah, for me that's the weird shapes.
Weird shapes.
So I start for example with a ball, with a square, with a triangle, name it, a weird shape, and then I'm gonna try to find an elephant, for example, in there, or a bee, or no, you name it. And to make that work, you touch such a different approach to an animal, but you still can recognize it. So go as crazy as you want, but still recognize it. That's what always has to be there. It needs to be unique for me.
All right. So if I understand correctly, so you approach it as a kind of a puzzle.
Yeah.
So you create a weird shape.
Yeah.
And then try to make out of that weird shape a character with elephant characteristics.
Yeah, exactly. So you really start from a weird perspective than you usually do. Like, okay, the proportion needs to be right. And
is that because otherwise you start working from our cliches?
Yeah, that's what I feel like. But also, like, I really admire people that can do that realistic. But
I don't mean about like realistic. But if you say, okay, draw an elephant, you start, of course, with a trunk and the ears and blah blah blah, and that's your starting point.
Yeah.
But if you work with a weird shape and you try to put on a trunk and ears, you are not starting from the elephant's characteristics.
Exactly.
But you're trying to make an elephant out of something that isn't an elephant.
Exactly, and that's what I do. And the nice thing is also if you, for example, use a triangle, it looks already a little bit like, and then you can, okay, I need a character that's more sad. Then a triangle is perfect because it's hanging already. Like these kind of little things I'm always looking for.
All right, so basic proportions, are you looking? Okay.
Yeah.
This is like quite a good example about it because you see quite clearly the triangle in the right upper right, and the square and the stretched rectangular. These are examples on how you approach it, and this is more like. Can you tell us a little bit how did this come together? Because I can see this is an exploration of different kind of styles.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always do because then the client can also see like, okay, this style I really I want to approach, or that style. Like for example, the right lowered one is like more outdated, a little bit more classical, like little dolls. And the upper one is more like modern stuff.
What's the difference then? Because I totally I see what you mean. So this is more like traditional, and this has like a kind of a sharpie, sketchy edge.
Exactly.
Where does that come from? Yeah, it's maybe a difficult question, but
well, no, it's not a difficult.
What are the specifics for you for more traditional, and what are the specifics for giving it like this edge?
That's the weird thing. If I start and for example, this client was also from Ambassador. It's called Nexium, and they came to us like, we need 3 characters, stuffed of like plush animals, and they need to be cute. And no. What I then think, I see in front of me, I see different families. That was also the question, like, can you make different families for this? I was like, yeah, I see one like very modern, and then I already see the colors and everything that comes with it, and that's why I work it out like this. So it's really hard to pinpoint it, but I see an image in my mind before I start, and I do it in that way. So that sketch one, like, needed to be in that way. That right one, more unique one, needed to be with those colors in that way. I could see this already, I don't know, at Hema or something. I'm just saying something.
Yeah, so like this baby cloth kind of puppets.
Yeah. And I just, the complete picture, normally that progresses, but for me it's already in the mind or something. It's really hard to explain, but that's basically how it works for me.
Yeah. Hey, and then this is like quite a big step, but then looking at this, then going to this, then you see that you see a combination of like the more graphical characters we saw on the first sheets, the more fluffy, sketchy ones, and here it comes together. Am I correct?
Yeah, a little bit, yes. This was mostly in the beginning of Ambassadors, so I was still quite graphical, but I could implement already the weird shapes and added some shading somewhere. You don't see it really that much here, but you see back the weird shapes. And I really like to put, because I was also, at a certain time, I was a lead designer at Ambassadors, and there I really learned to combine everything together. So for example, we had different styles in the company, different people, different artists, and I brought it all together by color, by whatever, because I have that graphic background. And that really helped with this as well, because it's all in one, still from ASN Bank, but it's all with that color scheme, same style.
Yeah, for those who are watching and don't know exactly all the hierarchy, lead designer. So is that a job or like a function within the studio that you really like?
Yeah, I really like it, because the thing is that, like I said, I have this vision already in my mind how it's supposed to be globally. It's really fake, but it's there. And if I see all these artworks, I get inspired of other people with those artworks, and then we can bring it all together within the company to explain it to the clients so they understand, and they don't get like a catalog of 1,000 styles and they're like, yeah, but what is happening now? So it makes it also more clear for the client, and yeah, it's nice.
Okay, defining the tone of voice and create a clear vocabulary of elements so that everything comes together. All right, beautifully. And then, this is like what we mentioned more graphically. I really like the way you use contrast with the really thin legs and the, I don't know, the antennas. It's kind of like lush, but also really clear.
Yeah, exactly. And that was also important because this was for online videos.
All right.
And you need to take that attention span from people.
That's a big difference with, like, for example, illustration in picture books, in which you have like a lot of time to look at it.
Yeah.
And when working in advertising and making commercials or stuff that is flashing by on internet, it should be really readable and clear immediately.
And it are fairly more shorter projects.
Yeah.
So, but I like that.
Hey, it's really great to browse through the portfolio of your work, and we see like the different kind of styles. This is what you, if I'm correct, are for McDonald's project, and this is like even a little bit more painterly almost.
Exactly, like, This is a bit more the style where I now head to.
All right.
This was indeed for McDonald's, and it was for the Magnificents at Ambassadors again, and we needed to make monsters out of everything that has to do with a harbor. So I basically went wild. And it's really nice because everybody in the company then works on this and you come up with the craziest things. So.
And this is also like kind of a concept art perspective, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned before, like with Rachel, a colleague of yours, and you're now sharing a studio, am I correct? Yeah. And you mentioned she's like more specialist in concept art, and I'm like, what's the difference for you?
It's really funny because she started off, since I know her, and she's very long a friend since the Art Academy, that she was always like really drawn to the Pixar, Disney concept art, which she perfectly fits. I can see her in a few years there, or now. And I was always super graphic, but I really got to learn from her, and she really got to learn from me. And that's where our styles meet, and that's when, like at Ambassadors together, because she was working there as well, we could explode ASN Bank and we could make the beautiful thing. We had presentations together, and that's why we really like to hang out also in our studio together to work as a freelancer, because we really learn from each other.
All right.
I learn about her more concept art, realistic design, really the proportions well, like how it should be, like what, and for me that's super hard, and she learns from my weird graphic vision, and that's what brings our art also together. So yeah, it's really
so you're
cool.
also kind of a duo in like when you're going to present to a client, you always check with each other.
Yeah, we always like, hey, what do you think of this? Can you check a little bit? I need your eye for now.
Yeah, because you mentioned before, like at the Ambassadors, that you really use the team to gain skills and to learn from each other.
Yeah.
can you imagine you would work alone? You said that
No.
you went to freelancing, but you
Yeah.
really need somebody poking all the time. And
It was so important for me that I went to a studio or outside of house, because if you're too much in your little bubble, I really need other people to inspire me to see new things. And that's super important to me. So I was right away of like, no, let's do this together. And we have also another illustrator friend in that studio, and it works amazing because she, in her side, is also very different.
all right.
So yeah, that was basically the first thing that was important.
Yeah, because people who are just starting off, they have the idea that you are sitting in your own studio or in your room. When you just graduated, it's quite difficult, and you were lucky that you were hired by ambassadors.
Exactly.
But a lot of people are like find their own pathway in the industry, and normally they start from working from out home. But like looking for other people and get in touch with them and discussing it works to grow.
Exactly, and that's what I basically also did at the Art Academy, and that's why I went more the advertising way, just to talk with different people from those departments. And also, I think hopefully they do that now in that school, like more that way, because there's not only a place for the traditional way, but there's also a place for this way. And yeah, you see it. You can make amazing stuff for commercials, for short films, and it's super cool.
Yeah. And I also think working in animation, etc., is also teamwork, right?
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, I love it.
Hey, at the same time, we were looking at some of your concepts in the back. It also has like quite a clarity in it, right? Sometimes concept art can be really giving a lot of information, a lot of details. But you are really focusing in clear layout, clear color palette, making it all neat. And is that like by choice, or how are you working to get this look?
Yeah, well, I always start with a sort of ambience in my work. So I see the colors already like, okay, this is like a mysterious feeling that this paint needs to be, like this digital
that
art.
Atmosphere that you want to create.
That's for me super important. So I always try first out with colors, and then I see just like, okay, now building here, now and then for the composition. But it's always indeed clear. But I'm for now working to have it more like what you say, like more experimental. So it's not basically that I do it on purpose. It's more, I think, the combination of the graphic design and the concept art that I'm trying to make it always the best. For example, this I did quite some time ago, and now I see already how much I advanced in getting the sphere.
All right, what is what you don't like on this?
Yeah, we are always perfectionists, so I hate
but
everything.
that's like everybody and nobody, but it's also good because we learn.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
when you say, okay, I would now more focusing on what kind of areas?
I think I absolutely don't like the shadow on that dragon. Like, how flat can you have it? And that was back then. It was great because it needed to be a fast concept art. Like, okay, how is this environment going to be? What kind of animals are living here? But now, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, wow, you can do so much better. Like, you can have more dimension in it. Like, it can be more realistic, so you get more drawn to the image. And that's the same for the things on the windows. Of course, it's reflection and stuff, but that could be so much better.
All right. Now, I always like to hear what you would improve the artist, because normally if you watch through a portfolio, it'll look beautiful, etc. But you learn a lot by looking through the eyes of the artist that made it, because nobody is creating perfect work. And even though you're like 80 years old, worked for your life on the biggest productions, you still don't like your own work for 100%.
You're never satisfied. And then I make my portfolio and I'm like, okay, this is quite nice. Week later, I'm gonna start over, but I don't have all the works.
But it is important to do all those cycles, right?
Exactly.
So
I like it.
Because I hear a lot from people that are starting off that they find it hard to finish something.
Yeah.
So because there's like this kind of imposter insecurity that sometimes crawls into your working process.
Yes.
And then it's hard to make decisions. Is this the finished? Is this the right color? Is this the best dinosaur I could do?
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah. So how are you coping with that?
Not so good. No, I think it's always in there and I can manage. It's fine. If I need to finish something, I will say, like, at a certain point, you also need to say, okay, now it's good. Like, you're looking too much at it and you need to make, that's also part of being professional, need to make decisions now because clients cannot wait forever and they see it in a whole different light. Always I try to squeeze in some little bit more time to make it as perfect as I want, but I think extremes are never good. So I think every illustrator and designer has it, but through the years you learn to cut it off easier. But I think it will be forever there.
Yeah, but I think also it comes by my humble opinion, by experience, right? So it's not your last drawing you're going to make.
No.
It's not your last illustration.
That's what I like about
Sometimes
it.
people think, okay, this is my client. This should be like the best ever, because otherwise they will not return to me, or I won't get any jobs anymore.
Exactly.
So, and that gives you so much pressure that you lose sometimes. What I like about what you just mentioned also on your process is bringing a kind of a playful element in it. Let's watch at this one as well.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine if you don't know where to start, you don't want to work with cliches and you don't want to copy other one's work.
Yeah.
It's a good way not to think, okay, this is a blank canvas, where do I start? But that you have some techniques, like what you mentioned, starting with like an atmosphere, some colors.
Exactly.
Or making like this hump of clay and then see if I can find an
basically
owl
like,
in it.
Yeah, it's basically like clay.
Is that kind of playfulness important in your work?
Yeah, very, very important. Because if I have a blank page before me, I'm like, yeah, okay, where do I start? And I just need to start. And I sometimes have this feeling of like, oh, I cannot start. And I'm thinking too much. Don't think, just go. And then eventually something comes out of there. So I think it's really important for my work, yeah.
Hey, looking at this is also like exploration.
Yeah.
Do you also do a lot of research in this?
Yeah. So I first look up, like, of course, how the animal looks. In this case, the insect. What are they doing? What are their specifics? That's also a big part of my inspiration for my work is animals and the biology and nature. That's my main, and dinosaurs and aliens.
That's a bigger nature.
Yeah.
far away
exactly.
nature. Yeah.
Like these things are the most important thing in my illustration works. So I'm gonna research that animal, and like I'm maybe you should not do it, but I always do that. Like what is already out there, so I don't fall in that trap of the cliche that already has been done. And for me, it's also really important. They say, for example, this creature needs to be dorky. This creature needs to be very wise, and with the posture of how the animal stands or how he's feeling, you can see it already in the drawing, and then you don't even have to mention what kind of character the animal needs to have.
So the characteristics should be really clear, and then you can play around with those.
Like basically, okay, grasshopper, sad but very wise and old, and then I can go wild, and maybe a profession, a job that he has, and then you can go wild, and it's super cool because you create all these stories around it also.
Do you need that kind of limitations as well? Just
Depends.
to find like a kind of what we just mentioned. It's hard to start off. So if you say, okay, it's green, orange, and blue, it's a grasshopper and it's old, and he is like, how do you say? He just had an accident.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really nice to have those limitations, because for me it pushes me to work in that environment and push myself to the limit to make as most as creative in that little ball, in that bubble. But the thing is, if you're a freelancer, sometimes you don't have work and you want to push yourself and you want to learn new things. So I'm now trying to learn to have a blank canvas without any restrictions, and then see what pops up and make something really nice of it. So it's hard.
Then you got this kind of sheets, and you create this world, and then you picked your favorites, or the client picks it together with you and your art director or the director?
This was for ASN Bank again. Yeah, that's one of the biggest clients that I did at Ambassadors, and the best because it's all about animals. And the thing is that the client's going to look at it and have a certain preference, but also, for example, our art director in that case was Vincent, and he had like this really, that's what I found so cool about him. He had really like this vision in the company to not make it too commercial and to push yourself first into the craziest way to make the best animation. And so he had also his eye on it, and that together became the feedback, basically. But mostly what Vincent said, we all agreed, and of course we had some things, but we could also brainstorm within the group, and yeah, that's basically how it went.
Yeah, because an important thing of not making it too commercial was to make it tactile.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't like all this CGI, shininess, plastic world, but like leveling it on a human scale.
Exactly.
Make it like tactile in the mean that it got texture and it looks real and it looks like real dolls. And then finally, this is like, if this is like an exploration, you slowly go into
How
the final designs.
Exactly. And that was also basically super important for the people that work in the, I don't know how to say it, like more the side of the 3D, the visual effects, to make it animation. Like they need to understand how your design works. So at a certain point, you need to make turnarounds, you need to make expressions. So the people from 3D and stuff they need to know how it works, because they just like they are figuring out how it works in real life, and you figuring it out in your head. So that translation is super important. And yeah, we mostly did that with material design. So for example, this, and then seamed fabric, a shiny nose, wool fabric, and then the colors and the textures and everything you need to lay out there in order to make it a great design, because it needs to be understandable for everyone. And that combination is so cool.
And here you also see like this final, here also these are like explorations, and here you're already like mentioning how you want to texture it and how you make it like kind of constructed.
Yeah, because the thing
fabrics.
is with ASM Bank, it's really like a defined, unique style of working. So at a certain point in the beginning, we made this one-day fly, and the fly had legs, but the legs were rope. So we can bring that back in the further commercials also. We need to remain that style. And that's the great thing about ASM Bank. We could go basically loose. We could go wild with all these things. So the weirdest shapes, the weirdest materials, but also really tactile, indeed. Like you see here, all the weird shapes that I use. And in the end, we got to find out the frog in the scapegoat commercial, how it in the end was.
And when designing this, do you already have in the back of your mind that it in the end also should be animated and modeled, and so that you don't do too difficult designs in that sense?
That is the thing a little bit. Like, of course, you're automatically going to think that. And in the beginning, I didn't know, but through the time I learned. But also, you should not always limit yourself to, oh no, it needs to be 3D, it needs to be. We'll figure out that later. That was always the motto in Ambassadors. And that's really great, because then you never limit on your creativity, I think.
Okay. Here's also like some nice color test.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit more worked out, a little bit more graphic again.
Yeah. But it also comes together also by this visual language, right? You have to have like this specific design, because there's a whole forest around it and a lot of other animals, and they should stick out in that sense. You should recognize them. And
and this is for the overheersbeestje. I don't know what's in English anymore.
Oh,
but
I forgot it. Lieveheerenbeestje. Okay, in the chat, people, what's Lieveheerenbeestje? Then explain it to our international audience.
I don't know it anymore. Doesn't matter. Either way, he needed to be like a general. He needed to be like. So that's basically what I tried to do here. Like, if the right one is really like, look at me, but the top one is a bit more dorky with a way too big head. Like, it's funny to play around in like these little medals of nature products, like a leaf or like a little piece of wood. And I really like to explore that and put it more in a human way, so it becomes really funny and
Yeah, and it gives a kind of extra storytelling to it as well.
Yeah.
So if you are watching the middle one, where also the how do you say, the specific looks of the Lieveheerenbeestje, I still don't got the English word for it. All right, who knows it in the chat and is at the art department? I'll buy you a beer. And it has like already this military kind of signs by using it really clever. And also just the stick becomes also a kind of it's embodiment of power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is basically for the frog that we did for ASN Bank. For the scapegoat, it's the last commercial, I think.
All right.
But he was also like this. He has this big mouth, like, but he's super small. So what does he have to say, you know? And he's like this corporate guy, and it's just very funny because you can put all these little jokes. For example, in the tie there, like, oh, he's so big, but he just has little flies on his tie, and he's
oh yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, he's just, or like the tongue, for example, is literally like a flat stripe. Like, I love to play with those simplistic shapes to show like, okay, it's a tongue. You see, it's a tongue, but it's super weird.
But it's nice to see all those kind of details. And what I also like is going from 2D into like a little bit more textured,
Exactly.
and then slowly it becomes a 3D character as reference material for the designers.
Exactly, because this is almost the last step indeed, and that's where, for example, Rachel came in.
All right.
Like, she's really good in 3D, and she learned me to do this, and now I can do it too. Super cool. So, but this is basically the step for 3D indeed, and then you have, of course, also the expression sheets, turnarounds. This is a lineup in the end that also goes to the people that do the 3D, so they understand how it works, how big, the scaling, the materials. Yeah, it's super important also to see in the end if the lineup works, if it's all together, because sometimes you're like, ugh, this doesn't fit here, and you can flip around and change again.
What is for you the most difficult part of this design process?
The 3D part. So that's why I really want to learn more into the 3D concept art, because I come from a fairly graphic space. For me, it's really hard to like perspective and so I bought some books and that's my next mission.
So like with shadowing, using light and
exactly,
textures.
to make it more realistic so you can really see what happens.
Yeah, because this is beautiful, but this also has its charm as well. Huh? I like both worlds. I like everything. But it's really nice to see how you construct actually the character. Like, how many of these kind of goats do you then draw? Is it like sometimes, because when you work with upcoming talents and the next generation, they show you one example, but I can imagine you draw hundreds of them.
It's insane, and it began like when I was beginning at Ambassadors, I was like, but how many do I need to draw anymore? I mean, like, you have now a lot, and I was like, I don't have ideas anymore, and then. At a certain point, you're so used to doing this, it becomes more and more. So we made at a certain point also huge posters with all the designs, and they couldn't even fit on it. I think for this goat, I made 50 or something. I think Rachel as well. I think Nick, like everybody, goes wild. And then you can always narrow down. And I think it's important to start off wildly.
And this is all digitally drawn?
Yeah, so, this is all. But sometimes some people also do it by hand. Like, for example, Rachel and other people in the company did a lot by hand also. I really like that. But I always started off digitally. This is, for example, more expression sheet of the scapegoat.
Yeah, the animation.
Happy, sad, shocked, eating, super happy.
Really nice. Really also nice how clear the designs are.
Yeah. Or, for example, how to show like the whole process. For example, like, okay, what kind of skin does he need to have? What kind of colors? How is he more sweet? How is he more dorky? That's just very important. How can we show the different shapes? Maybe it can be like a little bit of patched fabric or...
Yeah, that's also, the devil is in the details. Sometimes people think it doesn't, why should I do like 1,000 different kind of textures? Pick one, pick one. But you can see that like this is more like, if you could see it from the distance, people would like think maybe that's a cow. Yeah. And you want to have it like a goat, and it should not be a sheep. All those little things are really important to understand.
Yeah,
the
definitely.
Design, huh?
Yeah.
It's also, I thought it's a beautiful design about like how to translate nature into this human kind of artifacts and objects.
Exactly, because the judge really needed to have like this suitcase. Yeah. And it needs to be beautiful, elegant, but also from nature. The nice thing is if you design props, because that's also a part of within the concept art, you need to also consider it that it needs to fit the character. So in this case, the judge needed to have like a really bossy, beautiful, elegant suitcase. Yeah,
and everything should be logical in that sense. It should be logical and matching in those whole world of a forest.
Yeah, indeed. This was another ASN commercial. That was for a fish. So you see, like, for example, that shape is really weird. But
so you start with this kind of...
and then, okay, where can I put the eyes? And then should I put the eyes on top or lower? And that also gives so much expression and character to a character. And if the eyes are super big, then he's more like a child or like cute. And if you put him on top, it's a bit like, like dorky, clumsy. And all these little... It's like a whole new language of character design, I think.
Yeah.
This one is then more worked out.
Beautiful. It already has this lot of depth in it.
Yeah, that's what I mostly learned later on, and now you can use that in those.
Yeah, because like, do you do like a lot of tutorials? Do you train yourself still a lot? Like I can imagine using light, depth of field, how to bring in like the layout of shots. Is that something that you learned at the art academy, or is it like something that you really found out in books? And what would be a really advisable guide of knowledge, do you think, that you used
Yeah.
in the past? Is there a book that you say, okay, everybody should read or look at it?
Yeah, that's a bit hard for me because basically everything that I learned from color and light, I didn't really learn it at school, like not at all. But I mostly learned it from my colleagues in work.
Okay.
So these guys are really know exactly how light works. I learned about rim light. I was like, what's rim light? But that's it, like the little light, side of there, yeah. And so basically it's from people and talking and see how they work. And that's my most valuable thing. These last moments I bought some books like, for example, Shadow and Light. Probably a lot of people know about it. I'm not sure from who it is, but I still need to start on it. And anatomy from animals, because I really want to learn also as well that. But I don't have a specific book that I really think like, yeah, that you should read. It's mostly, for me, it's biological books and encyclopedias and, of course, the Pixar and Disney books.
They all are helpful, but you say,
Yeah.
okay, try to find your own sources and keep it quite close to,
Yeah.
for example, because copying is also quite around the
yeah.
corner then, right? So
Yeah.
if you are taking it from like what you mentioned, like books about nature or like tropical fishes, and then you start drawing, that's even a better sometimes way to define
Exactly.
your style or find a way of how to draw it, than take a tutorial book and how to draw a tropical fish.
Exactly. For me, the tutorial books and stuff is more about the technique. And that's great to advance my skills. But I think the unique vision is the most important. And my unique vision I get from nature. And I made once this book when I was graduated about animals in the city that evaluate in the city due to human changes in the city. And I was sitting together with an evolution biologist, and I learned so much from him. And I was like, this is the sources that I want. So it's a bit different for me. But
yeah, because that it also is like with concept art, you also need a concept, right? To design it.
Yeah.
It's also nice how you use color and light.
Yeah, this was mostly also the lead designing part. For example, we started off with the PVC horse, also Azenbank. And this was basically one of the first sketches I did for it, but it became the main focus for the whole film with the color and when like the little PVC horse falls in love with the Q-tip. But yeah, that's of course like horrible because it's just trash from humans. And then you see also how it goes bad, but the ambience within this image became like the base for that film, and that was really cool because you can see it's super basic. It's not really beautiful, but it's just like, hey.
Yeah, but it has like already the color palette, the look and the feel, the clear designs and silhouettes of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, this is almost the last bit, and then we go to your personal work.
Yes.
Then we discussed the more commercial context at the ambassadors. This is one of the latest you worked on, I think, for Unox.
Yeah, that's correct.
And what was your role in that project?
Mostly not really the character design in this part. I was also busy with another project, so I worked mostly on some concept arts wherever I had time. So this was one of them. Like this guy is all day working in the butchery. And at a certain point, he's like, his life is there, so he falls asleep there. Lights go off. Now lights are even still on, but there was more also of an ambience.
Giving
image.
the mood of the
exactly.
Of the
I
commercial
really
you wanna
like
look
that.
for.
The mood.
All right. So what we can like say, summarizing it for the ambassador, you learned a lot.
Yeah.
Working in a team. There's no specific style, so you work in all kind of different styles. I like to blend things in and to work from out like strange shapes. Difficult for me to pronounce. And during that project at Ambassadors, you started one of your own, which is this one.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about this project?
Yeah, it was with Mirjam Moesch and Sander Niekerk. They wrote a story and they came to me like, hey, we have this lovely story about dinosaurs for kids. And do you like to be the illustrator for it? And I was like, this is my dream job. I want to draw always dinosaurs when I was a little kid already. And now I can make a children's book of it. So yeah, that's basically it. And I did this next to my job back then. So there was a little bit in the end of Ambassadors. And yeah, it was just so amazing because I had so many characters that I could design. So in my own style, because I could pick the style. And I also had boundaries because there was a story out there. And it's super cool because eventually they put it on bol.com and different sites, like big sites. I now saw yesterday that it was on Donner. That's like a big store in Rotterdam. Now I was in to the moon. Yeah, this is the best. Like, and that kids get happy from it. The parents get happy from it. I get happy. They get happy.
Everybody happy.
Yeah, it's just it's great. This is, I think, if you ask me what's my favorite jobs, is always children's books. It's the best.
Why?
Yeah, I think the playfulness, the imaginary worlds that the kids have. Kids are so unbound, so free, and the variations. Like, you're not bound to a certain style. Like, you can go wild, and it's always a new adventure. Like, it's an infinite process, I think, with books.
And it's a different medium, right? So you have picture books for children, and you have like media like animation. Different medium. What do you like on the books?
Yeah, that's weird. The thing is also, I really like the fact if my illustrations become moving, but at a certain point, it's also super cool to create a beautiful visual, which is just standing still, because it pushes the limit out of you, as in like, okay, you need to make everything of this still, and it's not moving, so you need to make it very interesting. And I think I like that the most, like to put as much creativity in one plate, in one
How can
screen.
you bring in also a dynamic in a static image?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, yeah.
I think I like that mostly about it, yeah.
What I also like about these kind of things is that they trigger your imagination. So it's not like filled in already how they move and how they talk and how they sound, but you have to imagine it all yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the magic also of it, yeah.
Is that also why you like dinosaurs so much?
Yeah. Because that's the thing. It's always a bit weird because I like fantasy things, but if it's too much fantasy, I'm like, yeah, now I don't believe it anymore. And dinosaurs
So too many dragons.
Yeah, like I'm also having more with dinosaurs than dragons for some reason, because a dragon is full fantasy and a dinosaur was really there. Same for aliens. It's like
they were already there.
Yeah, maybe. Like we cannot be the only one. It's like the little bit of touch with reality, but also the imagination and the mysteriousness. That's for me the most important, and I think that's why I draw a lot of dinosaurs.
Okay. So you like the kind of, it could be for real?
Yeah.
And you want to give it like a touch of fantasy.
Exactly. So, for example, if I watch movies, it's always sci-fi, but it needs to be like not full
What's your favorite
fantasy.
sci-fi movie?
Oh, this is hard. I think The Matrix still.
The Matrix?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there are not that many animals in it.
No, I know, but but my favorite
Your
film.
favorite animal?
No, my favorite film is of course Jurassic Park. That's not,
Really?
Yeah, of course, dinosaurs.
No. I went when I was in. I was in a lucky position to meet Phil Tippett,
Cool.
who was the dinosaur coach at Jurassic Park. So if you visit his studio, you actually see all the prototypes that are made
Yeah.
by him for Jurassic Park before Lucas and Spielberg made the decision to go digitally.
Yeah.
But first they wanted to make it stop motion, and then it
which is
became
also
digitally.
great.
So you actually also saw all this kind of models and mock-ups of dinosaurs. I think it would be your dinosaur heaven.
Oh, no, for sure. That's also one of the dreams. Like not only in the van drawing in nature, also just work there for one film, for Jurassic Park or for a
is
creature
that
film.
one of your dreams to work in Hollywood?
Not precisely
on this kind of productions?
Yeah, just like one film, for example, Jurassic Park or an alien movie. I'm also amazingly fan of like The Arrival and all these kind of things. To work on creatures like aliens or dinosaurs. But you see that in my later work, it's coming through.
All right, nice bridge. Thank you for this one. Because, yeah.
Here you see,
So this is actually, when I hear you talking about, this is a combination of dinosaurs and aliens.
Exactly. And that's what, like, basically when I wrote it, it's really weird. Maybe I sound weird, but I was 6 or something, and I was at my grandma's, and I was drawing always what I said before, like in my little corner, and I always drew these creatures. And maybe not like as detailed as there, but I already made those things. They were just popping up in my head, and I wanted to make them. And that has always been the nicest thing for me to do if I was drawing. It was meditative, and I do this. So I was like, why am I not picking up again? This is this is what I want to do. And now that's why I'm also learning to do light, shadow, that kind of stuff, to make those creatures more alive, and to maybe sometime work in a movie to create and to make those creatures.
Oh, that would be your dream. So you want to be in Dune, the next episode
yeah.
of Dune, something like that.
Yes.
Dream big.
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
Yeah, of course. Hey, and yeah, this is maybe a little bit off track. If we are talking about dinosaurs, this is obviously not a dinosaur, but
No.
it's like inkfish. And a
But it's
rabbit.
also a weirder creature, or like not weirder, but like
But you choose
outstanding.
like albinos in
Yeah.
that sense to make them. Is that from a kind of more graphical interest to, or like what do you, because they are really special and unique,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, it's again finding the edge, finding the mysterious thing in life and not the usual
Okay.
thing. And that's why I took albinos, and also it really combines well in a series. But I always like to find the little not in place things in life.
All right.
So it's always, you find it always in my work, like a little bit of a surrealistic feeling to it.
All right. This is a combination of like robotics
Yeah.
and of course dinosaurs, which makes it sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
That's
I
your
really
magic
like.
ingredients.
Yeah, and it's like a sort of a fuel bird. So this bird is walking around in the desert, but he needs at a certain point a bit of fuel. So he goes there. That's like the transportation in the future, or maybe not. Maybe it's just another planet. It's all possible.
And this is like more. And this is also so you this is combination of like different. This is almost like this fishy kind of look.
Yeah.
Combined with robots.
Exactly. I
And
use
horses?
everything that I see in nature, and I combine it in my head into this weird design, and then I try to make it as realistic as possible. And now I already see like, okay, this is not correct, but that's the imposter thing again.
Yeah, but that you mentioned you are looking for autonomy and like
Yeah.
all the concept art. You
Yeah.
know, of course, Daryl Whitledge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
she was at Playgrounds, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
2018, something like that.
She is super cool.
She has also these great books in how she explains
Yeah.
all the muscle and bone structures.
Yeah, I saw also a course from her online, and I'm learning in that because she's like the boss of it, like the end boss of it.
The boss of the animals. But you
Yeah.
see like also how you are evolving, like from going
Yeah.
from this and this. This is more one of your latest work.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And what do you say, okay, this is what I really improved through time?
Mostly the depth of field and the rim lights and the shadow, and that it gets a volume instead of that it's flat. Also, I really learned, like, I was always the one that does like the lines around things. But if you make something 3D or more realistic, there are no lines. There are, for example, not lines around our heads. Like that's really what I learned. And when I scrooched that away, it was already like, whoa, it really works. Or like, for example, if you blur the background and the front is more sharp and you do a little rim light and you do more texture, that's really important to give it more of because you cannot, how do you say that? You look in nature and you see it everywhere. And that's, I think that's the most, so I need to work on my techniques instead of like the visions that I have, I think.
Yeah, and in a way, when you're using like a more graphical kind of world, and if you are doing this kind of concept art and you imagine them in a kind of a 3D live action context,
Yeah,
then you want to make them believable in that sense.
exactly.
Yeah.
And not full fantasy again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like a little bit more graphical, but beautifully combined with lights and how transparency.
Yeah, this is actually very cool because these creatures really live on like in the deepest oceans. And we didn't even figure out what they are yet. So basically we have aliens on Earth. And that was my
that's the link, of
inspiration
course.
again. So that's why I made this. This is basically made in Procreate on the iPad.
Okay. You're using Procreate now a lot?
Not anymore. It was in the beginning. It was like, oh, I want to use this. But now I prefer more the Cintiq. So I'm really like hooked to my Cintiq, and I think I will never go different anymore.
The good thing from Procreate is you can take it everywhere, right?
Exactly. So in the train, I'm like doodling, and that's great. This was,
This is Inktober kind of challenges.
Yeah, exactly. For Instagram, social media. And these are all different inventors of big stuff. For example, the
Rolling skates.
Yeah.
Change the world.
Exactly. But you have like all these different guys and girls that invented the greatest things. So I really like to do every day this challenge of like pushing yourself still to draw by hand, for yourself. It's really important, I think, to have a balance.
Hey, and then we're back in business again.
Yeah.
Here's what we started. You in your cabin, and we were traveling through a lot of work. and through a lot of knowledge that you shared with us. So this is your dream environment to travel and to walk through nature and to draw nature and to design. And then this house will be in America?
I'm not sure. I'm now living in Rotterdam, and I love Rotterdam.
Oh yeah, well, it's a beautiful city.
Yeah, it's great. But like, I'm always wanted to travel. Then COVID started, unfortunately. So I don't know where I will end up. But as long as
because I tried to link it with what you mentioned with working for big productions.
yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not yet in the Netherlands.
I wish it was, yeah.
Like the sci-fi big productions. Thanks to Netflix, things are changing. So
Exactly.
maybe there will be opportunities.
Yeah, and maybe for a while, like I would love to work for a film like that, and maybe for a while I can do that. It's one of my biggest dreams, so why not?
I hope it will come true.
Me too.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for all your
Thank you.
great explanations and all your great work. Thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of Playgrounds TV. I hope you enjoyed it. Please clap in the chat for Maureen, and see you next time for a new episode of Playgrounds TV. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.